Hey everybody, it's Roy from ANSgear. We're going to do kind of a instructional video on basic maintenance to do for your Gryphon. We had somebody on YouTube that was looking or wanted us to do a video for them on what you need to do maintenance-wise for your Gryphon. So a couple things you're going to need, obviously a gun, Phillips head screwdriver, 7/64 Allen key. That'll get you into the guts of most of the gun. There are some things where you would need to wrench off a part or something like that. But we'll talk about that when we get there. That's to do like super maintenance on the gun. But just to do basic maintenance, we're going to take the gun apart, show you the inside pieces, kind of just show you how it all works inside there. Now, for the gun itself, what you're going to get, open the box, you're going to get your manual, your Gryphon, your barrel, and you're going to get this. So this has your barrel sleeve right here, and there's nothing in it. You've got a pull-through squeegee and some Allen keys. You get a little bit of oil. I recommend using oil in this, not grease. But that's it. You don't get a maintenance kit or a parts kit or anything like that in this gun. So they don't supply you the O-rings to do it. So doing it, you might kind of need to figure it out yourself. Obviously, the instruction manual shows you how to do it, but the parts you need really aren't there. So what you can use is pretty much just a 98 custom rebuild kit. This is internally based off of that system, so the parts are going to be the same as far as O-rings and stuff like that. But that's really all you're going to use. The detent's the same, O-rings are going to be the same. So you can pick up, a basic O-ring kit, the 3x1 from Captain O-Ring that we have, universal parts kit, 98 custom parts kit, the complete parts kit. Any of the parts kit are going to have the O-rings that you need to do it. Now, it's also going to give you a bunch of screws and things like that that you probably won't need. So if you're looking for just basic maintenance, probably just the O-ring kit is really all you're going to need. And then maybe some more oil. If this isn't enough, which really isn't a lot, some oil might do it for you. So we're going to move those to the side. We're going to move the box out of the way and we're going to start pulling it apart. If you have access to an electric screwdriver, I highly recommend it. Let's see, let's do this kind of more towards you guys. So we got a couple things to take off. We're going to need to take the feed neck off. We're going to have to remove this out, which holds the ASA in place. On the back side here, you're going to have screws, a bunch of screws all over that we're going to need to remove. So we're kind of just going to pull it all out, get everything done, get all the screws out first, then we'll start disassembling our bodies. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take out all the screws that hold the plastic body in place. Didn't quite get that one. Alright, so we got those. Let's make sure we didn't miss anything. Oh, let's get this one out too. I kind of like to keep my screws separate. The screws that I take out of one section, I'll put it to one side. Screws that come out of another section, I'll put it to one side. So things don't get mixed up. It does make it a little bit easier. Put over, and we're going to take out this one here. So this is where we need the Allen key. So that gets us out of there. So that releases the plastic body housing. So that comes off there like that. And then we can, just by lifting up the body and holding onto the inner piece, we can just kind of pull out the other side. I'm going to flip it over and show you what happens when I do take this off. If I take this off and I'm not careful, the linkage arm will fall out. Okay, right there. It just line up the two holes from the hammer and the bolt. Make sure it drops back into place when we go to reassemble it. But we can take it out now and just set it off the side because we do need to be working with it from this side right here. So we've got the housings apart right there. Now we have to take apart the barrel adapter at the front. So pull that screw off of there. We're going to stick that there. Put it over. that out of there, and then you can pull the barrel adapter off. There is an O-ring that's inside the barrel adapter. Make sure you don't lose that and that it stays inside there. And then we're going to take our feed neck off also. It's going to go right there. Now we're basically left with getting the housing apart to get to our internals. Now, if you don't want to break it down this far and you want to just do basic maintenance, what you can do is you can take your oil, open it up. In the ASA right here where the hole is, you can put about 2 to 4 drops of oil inside there, screw your tank on, and shoot the gun 20 or 30 times without the barrel on it. And that's going to help cycle that oil through the gun, and it's going to do basic maintenance. That's just stuff you can do at the end of the day when you play to make sure your gun is working for you next time. If you have an issue, like you have a leak or something like that, and you need to get into it and solve a problem, that's when we're going to need to do this. So if we need to do in-depth troubleshooting, this is where we're going to break it down. So after we get everything off like we've done so far, there's more body screws we need to remove. All right. Come on out of there. Okay. Now, when we go to take this apart, we're going to have our trigger linkage, and then the trigger assembly back here with the sear spring, the trigger plate. Those things are probably not going to stay in one spot. When you lift this case or this top piece open, it is going to fall apart and move around. If you're lucky, it'll stay in one spot, but most likely that doesn't happen. So we'll open it up, see what happens, and if we need to put it back together, we will. Hopefully it all stays pretty much together. We're going to kind of work around all the pieces, splitting the half apart, being careful not to jolt it if possible, so that it doesn't just come flying apart. I'm trying to hold the trigger down too, hold it in place so that when I do pull the half apart, the trigger doesn't stick in it and come up with it. And look at that. The only thing that didn't stay in was this pin. We'll take this pin out and we'll stick it in where it's supposed to go. We got lucky. So typically that wouldn't happen. All these little pins would all pop apart, the trigger would pop out, everything would come out, springs would go shooting everywhere, but we were able to keep it together for the most part. To get further inside of it now, we would take our trigger linkage arm out, and then we could remove our trigger if we wanted to go so far as to pull that out. I always like to put my pins back in place so I don't lose them. Spring goes down there. This is where your detent sits. If you ever needed to replace your detent, this is where it comes in. These do get old and get weak. So pull that out, put the new one in. It just drops right back down into place right there. Then we can move through the rest of the gun. The bolt, we can just rotate it, slide it out. Let's actually slide it right off. There's an O-ring at the end of the bolt that you can replace. Put that over there. To get the hammer assembly out, you kind of just need to compress the spring and slide it out. This O-ring right here is supposed to be free floating. It does not actually sit in a groove or anything like that. It doesn't act as an O-ring per se to seal anything up. It is a bumper. So when the hammer comes sliding back like this, it doesn't smash against the back of the frame right here. It has a little cushion, a little pillow of O-ring. O-ring on the front of the hammer right there. And if you need to, all those can be replaced. Typically, you won't need to replace a lot of these things. They just need to be cleaned and oiled and put back together, and that should solve your problem, mostly. If we want to get this transfer arm out, you just kind of wiggle it, like so. We can pull it off of there, rotate it, pull it off of there, set it down. And then the last piece right here is our power tube. Now, if we wanted to remove our power tube, I didn't take them out earlier, but I'll show them to you. There are 2 screws right there that hold the power tube in place. We'll take the screws out and try not to disturb any of the pins or any of the stuff on the other side. It might all come shooting out. It'll be a exciting adventure here. So I didn't. I got the 2 screws out right there. Turn it back around. Then we can pull this piece out. Now inside of here sits our valve. In order to get to the valve inside of here, if you needed to replace any O-rings inside the valve, maybe you had a leak coming down the breech, that would most likely be your valve. I mean, that's really the only thing it's going to do. You need to wrench this out. Now this is, if I am not mistaken, these are Loctited into place. I don't think that they use a Teflon sealant, or so there might be Loctited. There is some sort of sealant that does connect the 2 pieces together. You're going to need to put this into a vise or keep it attached into the gun and take it out by hand. Easiest way to do this for me would be to put it in a vise and with a rubber jaw on it and pull that out. That'll let me pull the valve out, do any maintenance, or replace the valve if I need to, and then I can put it back in, Loctite my piece, put it back together. So that's the only piece we're not going to pull out, just because this does require a little bit more toolage than we have in front of us right now. So those are your basic maintenance parts. O-rings here, O-ring on the front here. You just want to do your oiling. Inside each of these pieces here where this transfer tube runs, there is an O-ring inside of there. Now those rarely should go bad because they don't move around. They're not an O-ring that is constantly in motion. It's a static O-ring, but it might need some oil. So drop of oil in there, connect your piece, drop of oil in this one, connect your piece. You see they go together super easy. So you just push it all together or slide it in. All right, so let's go ahead and throw it back together. We'll start with our power tube. Get that down in like that. Then we're going to put our screws in. Our bolt in there, put our hammer in, our spring. Now we're gonna have to compress our spring down. Oh, I moved our pin out of the way here. Gonna make sure that the hole, there's a hole in the middle of your pin right here, that needs to line up so that your spring can go through it. Otherwise, you won't be able to compress the spring down. It'll be too long. That's going to go right in there. The O-ring, like I said, remember, it just flops around in there. It's okay that it's loose. Not a big deal. Make sure our sear is in place. All our pins are in place. Our trigger plate's in the right spot. Our trigger pins right there. And go ahead and put our trigger back in and our trigger return spring. Going to fit down there. We're not going to put our linkage arm in yet because we need to run the gas tube underneath. So put that in there. Perfect. All right, that's all set up on there. These things will go in last. After we've got our arm in, we can put our linkage back together. Like that. You can see how that works. You pull the trigger, this moves this piece, the sear rides on this, so when you pull this, it moves the sear up, dropping the sear out of the way, letting the hammer slide forward. Pretty cool little linkage setup right there. Let's put our halves back on. Make sure everything, before you start putting screws in, go around the gun. Make sure that everything lines up, that there isn't big gaps anywhere. All your pins have lined up. If there is weird stuff going on, pull it back apart, start over again. here. Alright, now this longer screw is going to run through there. Flip it over. We've got our two that go through here. Alright. Put this on the front. Tighten that up. Like that. Feed neck on the top. There. Now before we put our two body halves on, we do need to remember that our linkage arm needs to go in place. So put it in the bolt, slide your bolt forward to the point where it meets up with your hammer. Drop it in place right there. And then we can go ahead and put it back together. That's going to go on there. That's going to snap together there. And we're going to put all our screws back together. It's a lot of screw work just to get to the inside of the gun, but the maintenance itself is pretty simple. And there you go. So if you have the time to do it, obviously this isn't something you can just do at the field or super quick. Make sure you give yourself the time and space to break the gun down. But doing maintenance on the Gryphon is super simple. Just pick up a 98 parts kit. O-rings are really all you're going to be changing, and give yourself the space to take care of it. So this has been general maintenance for the Gryphon from Tippmann. Check out these and other videos we have through YouTube. And if you want one, order your Gryphon through ANSgear.com.